The gym door slammed shut, the metallic clang echoing like a gunshot in my chest. I froze, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, as Coach Ryan turned the lock with a deliberate click. His eyes, usually sharp with discipline, held something else tonight, something that made my pulse race and my throat tighten. It was late, past closing time at Iron Pulse Gym in suburban Ohio. The air smelled of sweat and rubber mats, the kind of place where dreams of strength were forged. I'd been coming here for months, a scrawny 24-year-old trying to rebuild myself after a breakup that left me hollow. Ryan, 28, broad-shouldered and commanding, had been my guide, pushing me through deadlifts, cheering my progress, and somehow making me feel seen. But tonight, the gym felt smaller, the walls closing in as he stepped closer. "Evan," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "We need to talk." I swallowed hard, clutching the strap of my gym bag. Ryan wasn't just my coach. He was the guy everyone admired, the one with a smile that could light up a room and a presence that demanded respect. White, like me, with a chiseled jaw and hazel eyes that seemed to see right through you. I'd always thought he was straight, married to his high school sweetheart, Jenny. But the way he looked at me now, standing just a foot away, made me question everything. "What's this about?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. My heart pounded like I'd just finished a sprint. The gym was empty, the mirrors reflecting only us, two figures caught in a moment that felt like it could shatter. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he crossed the room, his sneakers silent on the floor, and stopped in front of me. Too close. His breath was warm, and I caught the faint scent of his cologne. Woodsy, grounding. "You've been different lately," he said. "Distracted. I see it in your sets, the way you avoid my eyes. What's going on with you?" I wanted to laugh, to brush it off, but the truth clawed at me. I'd been wrestling with feelings I couldn't name, ones that surged every time Ryan corrected my form or clapped my shoulder after a good lift. Feelings I'd buried since high school, when I'd learned to hide who I was to fit in. "It's nothing," I lied, stepping back. "Just tired." Ryan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he'd let it go. But then he reached out, his hand grazing my arm, and my skin burned under his touch. "Don't lie to me, Evan," he said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "I know you." My breath hitched. Did he? Did he see the part of me I'd kept locked away, the part that dreamed of more than friendship with someone like him? I'd grown up in a small town where being gay was whispered about, never celebrated. I dated women, played the part, but Ryan, he was unraveling me. "I'm not lying," I said, but my voice cracked. I turned to leave, needing air, needing distance, but his hand caught mine, firm yet gentle. The lock on the door seemed louder now, a barrier between us and the world. "Stay," he said, and it wasn't a request. It was a confession. I stared at him, my mind racing. This was Ryan, Coach Ryan, the guy who led HIIT classes with military precision, who wore a wedding band, who everyone assumed had his life figured out. And yet, here he was, holding my hand, his eyes searching mine for something I wasn't sure I could give. "What are you doing?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. He didn't let go. Something I should have done a long time ago. The air between us crackled, electric and dangerous. I wanted to pull away, to run, but my feet wouldn't move. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, and I felt it. A line being crossed, a boundary shattered. Not just his, but mine too. I'd spent years building walls, convincing myself I could live without this, without him. But now, with his hand in mine, those walls were crumbling. "Ryan, you're married," I said, the words tasting bitter. This can't happen." His face fell, and for the first time I saw vulnerability in him. Not the coach, not the leader, just a man caught in the same storm I was. "Jenny and I, it's complicated," he said. "We've been drifting for years. I've been pretending, Evan. Pretending I don't feel this. Pretending I don't see you." My chest tightened. "See me?" What did that mean? I was just Evan, awkward, trying to find my place, trying to be enough. But the way he said it, like I was more than that, made something inside me ache. I don't know what you want from me, I admitted, my voice raw. I've never. I know, he said, stepping closer. His hand moved to my jaw, his touch gentle but sure. But I think you feel it too. And God help me, I did. I felt it in every glance we'd shared, every time his hand lingered on my shoulder, every moment I'd pushed down the hope that maybe, just maybe, he saw me the way I saw him. But this was wrong, wasn't it? He was married. He was my coach. And yet, as his thumb brushed my cheek, I couldn't pull away. The gym was silent, the world outside forgotten. It was just us, two men standing on the edge of something terrifying and beautiful. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing. Nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, I woke up with my heart in my throat. The memory of Ryan's touch lingered like a bruise, tender and impossible to ignore. I avoided the gym that day, claiming a stomach bug in a text to Ryan that I rewrote 5 times before sending. His reply was simple: "Feel better. We'll talk soon." Felt like a promise and a threat. I spent the day in my small apartment, pacing the worn carpet, replaying every second of last night. The lock clicking, his hand on mine, the way his voice broke when he said he saw me. I wanted to believe it was real, that he meant it, but doubt gnawed at me. What if this was a mistake? What if he regretted it? What if I was just a moment of weakness for him? By evening, I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove to the gym, my hands shaking on the wheel. The parking lot was nearly empty, the neon sign flickering in the dusk. I didn't know what I'd say, but I needed to see him, to know if last night was a dream or a disaster. Ryan was there, alone, wiping down equipment. He looked up when I walked in, and his face softened, like he'd been waiting for me. "You're here," he said, dropping the rag. "I thought you might not come back." "I almost didn't," I admitted, shoving my hands in my pockets to keep them from trembling. "Ryan, what happened last night? What was that?" He crossed the room, stopping just out of reach. "It was me being honest," he said. "For the first time in a long time." "Honest?" I laughed, bitter. "You're married. You can't just do that. You can't just touch me and say things like that and expect me to know what it means." "I know," he said, his voice heavy. "I know it's messed up, but I'm tired of lying. Evan. To Jenny, to myself, to you. I've been hiding who I am for years, and last night I couldn't anymore." His words hit me like a punch. Hiding who he was? Did that mean no, I couldn't let myself hope? Not yet. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a deep breath, like he was steadying himself for a fall. "I'm saying I'm gay, Evan. I've known it since I was a kid, but I buried it. Married Jenny because it was what everyone expected. But being around you, it's like I can't pretend anymore." The world tilted. Ryan, gay? The man who'd been my coach, my idol, the guy I'd assumed was untouchable, he was like me? My mind raced, piecing together every moment, every glance, every time I'd thought I was imagining things. But it didn't make this easier. It made it harder. "Ryan, this is a lot," I said, stepping back. "I don't know what to do with this. You're married. You have a life. I'm just me." "You're not just anything," he said fiercely, closing the distance between us. "You're the reason I'm finally facing this. You make me want to be honest, to be better." His words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. I'd spent so long hiding my own truth, convincing myself I could live without love, without being seen. And now here was Ryan, offering me everything I'd ever wanted, and everything I was afraid of. "I need time," I said finally, my voice shaking. "I need to think." He nodded, his eyes full of something I couldn't name. Hope, fear, maybe both. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." But as I left the gym that night, the weight of his words followed me. I didn't know if I was ready for this, for him, for the chaos that came with crossing that line. But one thing was clear. Ryan had unlocked something in me, and there was no going back. The days that followed were a blur of avoidance and obsession. I went to the gym at odd hours, hoping to miss Ryan, but every creak of the door made my heart leap, expecting his silhouette. His confession played on a loop in my mind. I'm gay, Evan. It was a truth that both thrilled and terrified me. A crack in the armor I'd worn for years. I grew up in a place where being different was a sin you didn't speak aloud. My parents, kind but traditional, never understood why I didn't settle down with a nice girl like my brother did. I'd learned to smile, to nod, to keep my desires buried so deep I barely recognized them. But Ryan had seen them, seen me, and now I was drowning in the possibility of what that meant. By Wednesday, I couldn't avoid him anymore. I walked into Iron Pulse at 6 a.m., the sky still dark, thinking I'd get in a quick workout before he arrived. But there he was, setting up for the morning class, his broad shoulders tense as he moved benches. He looked up, and our eyes met, a silent question hanging between us. Evan, he said, his voice careful, like he was afraid I'd bolt. You've been ghosting me. I gripped the straps of my backpack, my knuckles white. I needed space, I said. It's a lot to process. He nodded, setting down a kettlebell with a soft thud. I get it. I dropped a bomb on you, but I meant what I said. I'm not playing games here. His sincerity cut through me. I wanted to believe him, to trust that this wasn't some fleeting impulse. But the ring on his finger glinted under the fluorescent lights, a reminder of the life he was still tied to. What about Jenny? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. You can't just pretend she doesn't exist. Ryan's face darkened, and he ran a hand through his short brown hair. I'm not pretending, he said. I've been trying to figure out how to tell her. It's not just about us, Evan. It's about her too. She deserves the truth. The truth. It sounded so simple, but it was a wrecking ball. I thought of Jenny, her warm smile when she dropped by the gym with coffee for Ryan, her easy laughter. She didn't deserve to be hurt, but neither did we. And what happens when you tell her? I asked. What happens to us? He stepped closer, his voice low. I don't know yet, but I know I can't keep living a lie. Not after meeting you. My chest ached. Meeting me. Those words carried a weight I wasn't ready for, but they also lit something inside me. A spark of hope I'd spent years trying to smother. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the man beneath the coach. Scared, determined, and painfully honest. I don't know if I can do this, I admitted, my voice barely audible. I've spent my whole life hiding. Being with you, it means stepping into the open. And I'm not sure I'm ready. Ryan's eyes softened, and he reached out, hesitating before his hand rested on my shoulder. You don't have to be ready, he said. Not yet, but I'm here, Evan. I'm not going anywhere. His touch grounded me, steadying the storm in my head. For the first time, I let myself imagine it. A life where I didn't have to hide, where I could love someone like Ryan without fear. But imagination was one thing, reality was another. That evening, I went to a coffee shop to clear my head, but the universe had other plans. Jenny walked in, her blonde hair pulled back, her smile faltering when she saw me. Evan, hi, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. You're Ryan's favorite client, you know? My stomach twisted. Favorite client. If only she knew. He's a good coach, I said, forcing a smile. Really pushes me. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. He's been weird lately, she said, stirring her coffee. Distant. I don't know what's going on with him. Guilt clawed at me. I wanted to tell her, to confess everything, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I mumbled something about stress and work, hating myself for the lie. When she left, I felt like I'd betrayed her, betrayed Ryan, betrayed myself. The next day, I went back to the gym, determined to face Ryan. He was in the office, paperwork scattered across his desk. When he saw me, he stood, his expression a mix of relief and nerves. "You're back," he said. "We need to figure this out," I said, closing the door behind me. "You, me, Jenny. All of it. Because I can't keep pretending I don't feel something for you." His eyes lit up, and for a moment, I thought he'd kiss me. But he didn't. Instead, he nodded, his voice steady. "Okay, let's figure it out together." Over the next week, we really talked. Late nights in the gym, after everyone else had gone, we shared pieces of ourselves we'd kept hidden. Ryan told me about growing up in a conservative family, about the pressure to be the perfect son, the perfect husband. I told him about my high school crush, the one I'd never confessed to, and the years of pretending I was someone I wasn't. Each conversation pulled us closer, but the shadow of Jenny loomed over us. One night, as we sat on a bench, our knees brushing, Ryan took my hand. "I'm going to tell her," he said. "This weekend. I owe her that much." My heart sank. I knew it was the right thing, but it didn't make it less terrifying. "And then what?" I asked. "Then we figure out what's next," he said, his thumb tracing circles on my hand. "Together." I wanted to believe him, but fear whispered that this was too good to be true. That love like this, raw, real, and hard one, came with a cost. And as I looked into his eyes, I wondered if we were ready to pay it. The weekend came like a storm cloud, heavy with anticipation. Ryan had promised to talk to Jenny, and I spent Saturday pacing my apartment, checking my phone every 5 minutes for a text that never came. By Sunday morning, my nerves were raw, and I drove to the gym, needing to move, to sweat, to drown out the what-if screaming in my head. Ryan was there, alone, his face drawn as he adjusted a rowing machine. He looked like he hadn't slept, his hazel eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "I told her," he said before I could ask, his voice flat. "Last night." My stomach dropped. How did she take it? He laughed, a bitter sound that didn't suit him. "Not well," she cried, yelled. Asked me how long I'd known, how long I'd been lying to her. He sank onto a bench, his hands clasped tightly. "I told her everything. About me. About you." "Me?" My voice cracked. I hadn't expected that. I thought he'd keep me out of it, at least for now. "I had to be honest," he said, meeting my eyes. "She deserved to know why. She thinks we've been sneaking around behind her back." "We haven't," I said quickly, but the guilt still stung. Every touch, every late-night talk. It might not have been an affair, but it felt close enough. "I know," he said, "but she's hurt, Evan, and I don't blame her." I sat beside him, the bench cold against my legs. "What happens now?" He shrugged, a helpless gesture that made him look younger, smaller. "She wants space. She's staying with her sister for a while. I don't know if there's anything left to save." The weight of his words settled over us. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him it would be okay, but I didn't know if it would. Instead, I asked, "Do you regret it? Telling her?" He looked at me, his gaze steady despite the storm in his eyes. "No, because it means I can be honest with you." My heart stuttered. I wanted to believe in this, in us, but the cost was already so high. Jenny's pain, Ryan's marriage, the life he'd built. It was all unraveling because of me. "What if this ruins everything?" I whispered. "What if we're making a mistake?" Ryan took my hand, his grip firm. "The only mistake was waiting this long to be who I am. I don't know what's coming, Evan, but I know I want you in it." His words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the fear. We sat there, hands clasped, the gym silent around us. It was a moment of quiet before the chaos, a pause before the world caught up with us. That week, the gym felt different. Word had spread, small towns talk, and Iron Pulse was no exception. Clients whispered, their eyes darting between Ryan and me. Some stopped coming to his classes, their absence a silent judgment. Others, like Sarah, a regular who always brought donuts, gave us knowing smiles, like she'd seen this coming. It was both comforting and suffocating, the weight of being seen. Ryan threw himself into work, his usual energy tinged with defiance. He trained me harder, his corrections sharper, like he was proving something to himself. But in the quiet moments, when it was just us, he was softer, his touches lingering, his smiles rare but real. One night, as we locked up, he pulled me into the office and kissed me. It was sudden, desperate, his hands framing my face as if he was afraid I'd disappear. I kissed him back, my heart racing, the world narrowing to the warmth of his lips, the strength of his arms. It was our first kiss, and it felt like a promise of more, of everything. But promises are fragile. The next day, Jenny showed up at the gym. I was mid-set, sweat dripping down my face. When I saw her in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed but fierce. Ryan froze, a dumbbell in his hand. "We need to talk," she said, her voice cutting through the hum of the gym. Clients turned, sensing drama, and I felt exposed, like a spotlight had pinned me to the wall. Ryan nodded, leading her to the office. I stayed behind, pretending to focus on my reps, but my ears strained for every muffled word. When they emerged, Jenny's face was pale, Ryan's unreadable. She didn't look at me as she left, but her absence felt like a storm passing. "She wants a divorce," Ryan said later, as we sat in his car outside the gym. "She says she can't do this anymore." I didn't know what to say. Part of me was relieved. She deserved to move on. But part of me felt like I'd broken something sacred. "I'm sorry," I said, because it was all I could manage. "Don't be," he said, his hand finding mine. "This isn't your fault. It's mine, for not being honest sooner." But it didn't feel that simple. As we drove through the quiet streets, the weight of what we'd started pressed down on me. Love was supposed to lift you up, but this felt like a battle, one we might not win. The divorce papers arrived a week later, a stark white envelope that Ryan tossed onto the gym's front desk like it was nothing. But I saw the tremor in his hands, the way his jaw clenched as he turned away. "It's done," he said, his voice hollow. "She signed them." I wanted to say something profound, something to ease the pain in his eyes, but all I managed was, "Are you okay?" He laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Not really, but I will be." We were careful after that, keeping our distance in public, but the gym was no longer a safe haven. The whispers had grown louder, and one afternoon, a group of regulars confronted Ryan. "Is it true?" One of them, a burly guy named Mike, demanded. "You and Evan? You're throwing away your marriage for that." Ryan didn't flinch. "My marriage was over long before Evan," he said, his voice steady. "And yeah, I'm with him. If you've got a problem with that, the door's right there." Mike left, and so did a few others. The gym's revenue took a hit, and Ryan's boss, a gruff older man named Tom, pulled him aside one day. I didn't hear the conversation, but Ryan's face was grim when he came out. "Tom's giving me a month to fix this," he said, "or I'm out." The unfairness of it burned. Ryan had built this gym's reputation, turned it from a rundown warehouse into a community. And now, because of who he loved, it was slipping away. I wanted to fight for him, to scream at the world, but I was still learning to fight for myself. That night, we went to a diner on the edge of town, a place where no one knew us. Over greasy burgers and 2 sweet milkshakes, Ryan reached across the table and took my hand. "I don't regret this," he said. "Not you. Not us." His words warmed me, but they couldn't erase the fear. "What if you lose the gym?" I asked. "What if this costs you everything?" "Then I start over," he said, his eyes fierce. "With you." It was the kind of promise that made my heart soar and ache at the same time. I wanted to believe in it, in us, but the world wasn't making it easy. My parents had started asking questions, their voices tight with suspicion when I mentioned Ryan. Friends I'd known since high school stopped texting back. The isolation was creeping in, and I wondered if love was worth this kind of sacrifice. But then Ryan would smile or brush his hand against mine, and I'd remember why we were fighting. It wasn't just about us, it was about being true, about living without shame. For the first time, I was starting to believe I deserved that. One evening, as we locked up the gym, Ryan pulled me into a corner, away from the windows. "I want to take you somewhere," he said, his voice low with excitement. "This weekend. Just us." I raised an eyebrow. "Where?" "It's a surprise," he said, grinning. "Trust me." That Saturday, he drove us to a cabin in the woods, a small place nestled by a lake, the kind of spot where the world felt far away. The air was crisp, the trees ablaze with autumn colors. We spent the day hiking, laughing, stealing kisses when no one was around. For the first time, I felt free, not just with him, but with myself. That night, by the fire, Ryan pulled me close. "I love you," he said. The word simple but heavy with meaning. I don't know what's coming, but I know that. My breath caught. I'd never said those words to anyone, never let myself feel them fully. But looking at him, his face lit by the firelight, I knew they were true for me too. "I love you too," I whispered, and it felt like a vow. We kissed, slow and deep, the world fading away. For that moment it was just us, no judgment, no fear, just love. But as we drove back to reality the next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that our time was running out. The gym closed on a Tuesday. Tom called Ryan into his office, and when Ryan emerged, his face was pale, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "He's selling the place," he said, his voice flat. "Says it's not profitable anymore. I'm out of a job." I felt like I'd been punched. The gym was Ryan's life, his passion. And now, because of gossip, because of us, it was gone. "This is my fault," I said, my voice breaking. "If I hadn't." "No." Ryan cut me off, his eyes fierce. "This is on them. On Tom, on the people who walked away. Not you." But the guilt lingered, a weight I couldn't shake. We spent that night packing up his office, the walls lined with photos of clients he'd trained, dreams he'd helped build. As we carried boxes to his car, I saw the toll it was taking. His shoulders slumped, his usual confidence dimmed. "I don't know what to do now," he admitted, leaning against the car. "This was my whole world." I took his hand, squeezing it tightly. "It's not your whole world," I said. "You've got me." He smiled. A small, tired thing, but it was enough. We were in this together, no matter what came next. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Ryan started looking for work, but the town's gossip followed him. Gyms turned him down, their excuses thin. I took extra shifts at my boring office job, trying to help with bills, but it wasn't enough. The pressure was building, and I could feel Ryan slipping, his optimism fraying at the edges. One night, as we sat on my couch, he broke. "What if this was a mistake?" he said, his voice raw. "What if I blew up my life for nothing?" I felt a pang of fear, but I pushed it down. "Do you love me?" I asked. He looked at me, his eyes wet. "More than anything." "Then it's not nothing," I said. "We'll figure it out." And we did, slowly. Ryan started training clients privately, using a small garage we converted into a makeshift gym. Word spread, not the gossip, but the truth, that Ryan was damn good at what he did. People came, some old clients, some new, drawn by his passion and his refusal to give up. I came out to my parents, my voice shaking as I told them about Ryan. They didn't understand, not fully, but they listened, and that was a start. The town was slower to change, but there were glimmers of hope. Sarah, bringing donuts again, telling us she was proud. A new client, openly gay, thanking us for being visible. One evening, a year after that night in the gym, Ryan and I stood by the lake where we'd escaped to. The air was warm, the stars bright above us. He took my hand, his ring finger bare now, and pulled out a small box. "Evan," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it. Will you marry me?" Tears stung my eyes as I nodded, unable to speak. He slipped the ring on my finger, simple and silver, and kissed me, the world falling away. It wasn't perfect. Life never is, but it was ours. We'd lost a lot. A gym, a marriage, the approval of people who didn't matter. But we'd gained something greater. The courage to be ourselves, to love without shame, to build a life together. And as we stood there, hand in hand, I knew that no matter what came next, we'd face it together. Not as coach and client, but as partners, bound by a love that had crossed every line and come out stronger.